Great. Well, we will call to order the March 23rd meeting, the Community Preservation Committee. Thank you all for coming for a special meeting. We'd like to call to order our meeting. And then is there a motion to call to order our public hearing, which would be on the District 5 Schoolhouse proposal?
I so move.
A second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? And we've now opened our public hearing, so welcome, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Good evening. Thank you, Ms. Mooney, and members of the committee for the invitation to speak to you tonight, and to Emma and Griffin from Planning and Economic Development for their assistance in this whole process. It's very much appreciated. I'm Christine Gustafson, Vice President of the Shrewsbury Historical Society, representing the Executive Board applicants for this grant. Several representatives of the board are also here tonight, and their presence indicates the board's unanimous support for this particular proposal. Co-presenter with me tonight is Anthony Domano, architect at Lammer, Pagano & Associates, bringing expertise in architectural design and project management. We're extremely honored to have Lammer's expertise involved in this grant. Jim Jolliker may join us later if he is able to, but he's also able to comment on the Mass Cultural Council grant that is also applied towards this project. I'll share a very brief 3-minute overview of the Society and the District Number 5 Schoolhouse restoration efforts, and then Anthony will follow with an absolutely superb PowerPoint presentation about the work that Lamorel will do based on the feasibility study. And then afterwards, we'll answer any questions. Several of you are already members of the Society and are well familiar with our activities. But in case you're new to town, I'll just give you a quick synopsis. The Society was incorporated back in 1898, and its mission is to keep alive and increase interest in the history of Shrewsbury, to collect and preserve items of special interest, to encourage general public interest in the Society's work, and most importantly, to maintain such personal property and real estate that comes under the control of the Society. We meet at the 1830 Brick School on the Common, and we also own the District Number 5 Schoolhouse. Our outreach includes curated exhibits at the Town History Museum, monthly programs on Shrewsbury Media Connection, our website, classroom presentations, field studies, scholarships, awards, participation in the Winter Festival, Spirit of Shrewsbury, and Shrewsbury 300th events. New members are always welcome. Our dues are $10. And it also includes a monthly newsletter. That being said, at this particular point in time, our number one priority is the District Number 5 Schoolhouse, and it has been for quite a number of years. This grant proposes restoration of the historic Number 5 Schoolhouse, specifically ADA work, so that it's accessible to all, and structural work so that it will address any safety issues that were discovered along the way. This work is important because the District Number 5 Schoolhouse, built in 1828, is the oldest school building in the town of Shrewsbury and one of the oldest one-room schoolhouses in the state. It served as a school for many years. Later, it was a private residence. It fell into disrepair, and it was facing demolition. The Society acquired the building in 1974, and with the assistance of restoration carpenters and an architectural consultant, it was restored to a schoolhouse and is now listed on the Massachusetts Historic Register and the National Register of Historic Places. For many years, it was open for community events, but since ADA compliance was not fully achieved, it had to be closed to the public. Recently, with CPA assistance and society funding, 2 major initiatives were completed. An accessibility study determined exactly what we needed to do to meet current ADA requirements. Then a feasibility study conducted by Lamoureux identified the specific restoration work needed to address the compliance and safety issues. This grant will complete the cycle. It's anticipated that grants, perhaps funded by CPA, the Mass Cultural Council, and Society fundraising will cover the costs, and the Society will continue to budget for maintenance and programs. Our grant application includes letters of support from the Commission on Disabilities, the Historical Commission, and the 300th Anniversary Celebration Committee. Now I'd like to turn it over to Anthony.
And it says I'm still waiting to be let in. And should I turn the microphone on here, or will there be feedback?
If you can turn it off, that would be great. Thank you.
Thanks again. My name is Anthony D'Amano. I'm with Lamoureux Pagano Architects out of Worcester. And as Chris said, we've been brought on to study the feasibility of restoring the Shrewsbury No. 5 schoolhouse and making it accessible to the public again in time for the celebration next year. Chris covered a lot of what I had planned to cover in my first slide. The building, you probably all know it better than I do. But again, just as a brief overview, an old schoolhouse, turn of the 19th century, one of very few left in the country.
Your thing is on mute, please.
Yeah, your laptop sound itself. I think it's coming out of your speakers is all. You can join as normal, but just this. So that way you're turn off your audio.
And is there a way to make it full screen too?
But then yeah, you can share again as you want to.
Thank you.
Yep.
Perfect, thank you.
All right. Sorry about that. So again, the building we're looking at, the No. 5 schoolhouse, obviously the top images are the historic photos that we could find. The building itself, a classroom with a teacher, and then an interior showing something that we'll talk about, the overhead flue. The images on the bottom are what we see today. The building no longer in a pastoral landscape, now is right off of the main road. Years of work at that intersection has carved away a lot of the property. The interior, still in pretty good shape, as Chris said, restored several decades ago. But as we've looked at this building we reviewed the previous architectural and accessibility study, we realized that the issue isn't just getting into the building. There's also some small minor issues that would need to be addressed to make it fully accessible on the interior. Again, the goal would be to make this building accessible to people of all mobility types and have it resume operations as a historical museum in time for the town's 300th anniversary. The obstacles to achieving that, which we discovered in our review on site, was that the lack of a ramp prevents wheelchair users from entering the building. The site does not currently have safe off-street parking or drop-off areas for visitors in wheelchairs. The doors into and within the building are narrow, and they cause obstructions to visitors requiring mobility assistance. And the interior stovepipe hangs too low from the ceiling and may be a hazard to people with reduced visibility. So digging a little deeper into the exterior, we hired a local firm, Thompson & Liston, to do an actual site survey so we can get some of these grades and understand the conditions here. But it's more than just the grades we're looking at. There's also a step up into the building. This, as you can see, this concrete plinth, not in good shape and not compliant with today's codes anyways. Looking at the exterior as a whole, what we would propose to be doing here would be to eliminate that old concrete step and create a new level surface right at that door threshold, with a walk winding around the back of the building and all the way to the sidewalk on Main Street. Just at the north of this page where you see Main Street, there would be a true handicap ramp with 1 to 12 slope and handrails. But the rest of that winding path would all be what's called a sloped walk. So it wouldn't need any handrails. It would be about a 1 to 5 slope. And it allows a person to enter from these new parking spaces, traverse the site, and get into the building. As you can see, these new parking spaces, there would be a van drop-off for people who need van assistance, as well as an additional parking spot for other visitors. We have carved out a little bit of the grade in order to create a suitable turnaround space. And the idea here was that we want all people to enter the building through the same path. So you shouldn't have a different experience if you're differently abled. And so this allows everyone to enter the site at the same location, progress through, and we would like to explore within the landscape behind the building, adding some of these blade signs or some signs you'd see at park trailheads, just more history of the building and Shrewsbury itself. Oh, and additionally, this path would be, we talked with the society, and we looked at different ways to be both economical with our resources, but also sympathetic to the historic character of the building. So we would look at using a stamped concrete, a pattern that could have flagstone or cobblestone or something like that. So something that's easy to maintain, not very expensive, but still maintains the aesthetic of the building. Turning to the interior, what we found here was that these doors are a little bit too narrow by current standards, and they also swing in towards each other. So in that middle photo, that's that vestibule. In today's code, doors have to swing away from each other, otherwise they become a collision hazard and it's difficult for people in wheelchairs to navigate. And the hardware also requires gripping as opposed to just a lever pull or turn. So the issue, as I mentioned, with this stove is that the flue is less than 80 inches above the finished floor. So 6'8", that's the lowest door you'll find in most homes. And anything lower than that, and a person who's reasonably tall but has limited visibility risks hitting their head if they're visiting the site. And so that one is a simple solution. What we would do here is, you see this brick platform, we would actually raise that up about another brick course, so about 2.5 inches. And so that would actually allow that flue to, everyone be able to walk under that safely. I just want to back up. The other thing, as you can see here on the right-hand image, this is looking at the vestibule door from the actual classroom space. It's always propped open, and so our proposal is actually just remove that door entirely. So it just becomes just a wood-cased opening, and there's no swing issue for people using the space. On top of this, we also took the opportunity to look at how we can best maintain the building in the long run. It's not just a matter of getting people into the building. We want to make sure it's usable as a historic site and museum for years to come. So we started by looking at where there's pitted wood or where there's shingles that are coming off or where there's cracks in the masonry. the kind of maintenance that does not cost a lot as an intervention overall, but has a big impact on the longevity of the building. The other thing that we found, which is actually of a greater concern, is as we dug into the site and actually got under the floorboards, we discovered a powder post beetle infestation. So the dots that you see in the spotlighted photo, that's evidence of they're basically like tiny termites. So they've been eating the floorboards and eating the floor joists below, a little bit in the attic, not as much. But our concern there was that the structural integrity of the floor has degraded very rapidly since the building was closed. So our proposal, and as you'll see at the end, would include the work involved to actually take up the floorboards and redo the entire foundational wood framing. And then we put down a new floorboard system that would match the random striation pattern that you see in the building today. All of that has been presented to the local Historic Commission and the local Disability Commission. We've also submitted all of these potential challenges and solutions to the State Historic Commission, and they came back with a letter saying that they found no reason to be concerned. There's nothing here that would jeopardize the character of the building, and it would still remain historic in their eyes. All of this work also meets current accessibility code, so we don't foresee any need to go before the access board for any sorts of variances. And so what you see here is the feasibility cost estimate that my office prepared in conjunction with Thompson Liston, the surveyor and civil engineer, as well as Johnson Structural Engineering, who looked at the actual structural remediations. So as you can see on the top, there's a $180,000 estimate for the building and architecture, which again primarily would be the structural remediation. In the site landscaping, that would be $260,000. And then professional services and miscellaneous soft costs, $55,000. And that would include designer fees, permit fees, exterminator fees. That's something we really think should be the first step to get the building tented and fumigated to slow the tide of the beetle infestation. And all that totals up to just under $500,000. And so, again, that's sort of the scope of the work that we're hoping to achieve. In terms of timeline, like I said, the building will be open, we hope by definitely next year. We're thinking probably the summer. And we would like to get the building out to bid towards the end of this year. We've found that when you put public bid projects out to bid at the end of the year, you sometimes get some better, more competitive bids from contractors as they're trying to price their kind of the work they have in the next fiscal year. Sort of the one in the hand, two in the bush sort of thinking. So the next step here would be, again, to flesh out these plans into contract documents and put them out to bid, and then get it open finally. So thanks for your time. And now I can take any questions you might have.
Thank you. Are there any questions specific to the architect's portion of the presentation? Or are we ready? Yes, Chris.
It's a really small question. What I read in the notes or the letters was that it would not do any harm to potential archaeological stuff.
Right.
To be putting in like the parking lot area or anything like that. And having worked on digs in my teen years and loving them and finding that you just scrape at the ground long enough, you find a coin or something like that. I assume that there's really nothing expected to be there other than the occasional half dime that was dropped 100 years ago.
Did you want me?
I can comment, or you could comment.
Oh, I guess we both could. I'll just make the note that when we were doing our research, we did find the original submission to the National Park Service to put it on the register, and they found that they didn't anticipate anything, like you said, a large archaeological finding at that point.
Okay, good enough.
When it was a private residence, there was a lot of debris on the property. When it was converted back to the schoolhouse, the society invested in removing the debris. So we're quite confident that any remnants would have long been disposed of.
Okay, thanks.
Does the committee have any other questions for the architect, or are you ready to hear from anyone in the public who would like to comment?
I guess in terms of the numbers, they're more detailed than the numbers you put up there?
The prices?
Yeah.
So that is just sort of the feasibility schematic design study. So the next step would be to produce contract documents, which we've started to do. And then what we would do is put that out to public bid to get their hard numbers.
I guess I'm surprised that the outside work, the landscaping, etc., is such a big number. That's $250,000. I mean, it's not that big of an area, and I guess I don't quite understand why it's costing that much, why it's estimated to cost $250,000.
Much of that is there would be some cut and fill, so earth moving to carve out. The building itself sits on a berm, which would have to be carved out a little bit to do the paving, as well as sloping the entire grade up to get that sloped walk around the rear of the building.
Thank you for that question too, but I think part of the challenge in that piece of property is that over time, on at least two highway improvement projects from the state, portions and chunks of that property have diminished the actual site and made it even more of a challenge to provide the kind of access that's required for the accessibility for that site. And thinking in terms of retrospectively what happened with the 1830, when that was made accessible to the public back in the 1990s, that cost was pretty close to $125,000 just for that property, from the ramp parking lot to the building. So that's back in the 1990s. So it kind of gives perspective to what might be required now.
I guess you basically, if I understood the drawing, there's 2 parking spaces there?
Yes.
I mean, you're basically making the square footage for 2 parking spaces and the linear footage for the sidewalk, it can't be more than, 75 to 100 feet? I mean, so I still think that's a big number.
I think
$260,000.
the sloped walk itself, I think, was, because it curves, I think it was over 150. And then the paving area, as you can see, it's 2 spots plus essentially the width of a 3rd spot for that striped drop-off area, as well as retaining walls. Because of that, I hadn't mentioned, but because Old Mill is so tight to that the right-hand side of the building, we would need to add a retaining wall as well as some sloping to get up to that that platform. So we'd have to, by getting rid of that platform, we actually have to bring the grade up to replace it and then slope to it to make it accessible. So it's not just the leveling off of that pavement area, it's a lot of landscaping and sloping around the rear of the building, as well as those retaining walls.
Now, is this, the estimate, is that something Pagano did?
So that the exterior was from our civil landscaper, Thompson Liston.
Now, the contingencies, is that a 10% number, and general conditions are just what, another 10% number?
I think we estimated, usually 10 to 15 for either of those. Yeah. And so that's actually baked into these numbers.
Right, I would understand that, but I'm saying, if you don't have to spend the contingencies, and I don't know what the definition of general conditions are, but that sounds like, unforeseen circumstances, let's say. This number could come down by, if I didn't have to spend any of that money, it could come down by $75,000 at least.
For the contingency, general conditions you spend it because it covers the contractor's overhead. They'll budget in the beginning of the project if they need a trailer or things like that. But contingency is, as you say, it's a number that if we don't use it, that the town doesn't spend it if we don't need it.
Yeah, those funds would stay within your particular accounts. They would not be expended. And just as a point of reference, when Lamro Bogano worked on the CPA grant for the feasibility study, we had one amount that was expected for the projected cost for the feasibility study, and the amount that was finally billed to us was less. So they have been very competitive with their pricing, and we reap the benefits of that long-standing relationship that the town has with Lamro Pagano and their work in the past.
So until we, but when we go to put it out to bid, you're gonna have to have a lot more detail,
Yeah.
Yes.
okay?
Yeah. Yeah, so we've actually started generating, and we have copies if anyone wants to
Yeah.
look at them,
We
of
do have these here.
floor plans, elevation sections. And then we would, like I said, the next step would be to take this schematic design to actual constructible drawings and details.
So these are the plans that contractors would then take to use to bid on the project. And these were part of the feasibility study work.
So Kathy, I think you had a question.
I did. What do you envision the hours of operation to be? Will this be open to the public, regular hours, or will this just be for more classroom use or private type of instruction or engagement?
But right now, the public benefit is zero. Nobody can go there. It cannot be used by the public. We would love to restore the kinds of programming we had there in the past. So we would have, for example, in the curriculum for grade 3 social studies, they study the history of the town of Shrewsbury, and grant funding was issued to third grade classes, and they were able to come down for lessons over the course of a week so that all of the classes would be able to come in and cycle through and have an experience there. We in the past would have 100, 150 people for a Spirit of Shrewsbury open house events. We would anticipate having a big event or 2 or 3 for the 300th anniversary, and obviously other events as they come throughout the year. So there would be regular hours. On the other hand, we also need to be very sure that we're following safety protocols. Anytime that that building is open, because of its location, the Shrewsbury Historical Society provides special off-duty police traffic control officers, and we pay for that salary so that they're able to assist people crossing the street, getting in and out of parking, having access to the building in a very safe and responsible way. And we would anticipate this would be a welcome addition to many people in the community, especially those who live in the neighborhood, who would like to be back in and see programming restored to this building.
But is there only parking for 3 cars or 2 cars? Or is there more? And would a bus fit in there?
So we could only fit the 2 spots on the site, so it wouldn't be able to fit a bus, but I think we had talked about buses being, with the assistance of the
drop-off.
traffic
Yeah.
officer, being able to stop on
It
the
was a
side.
drop-off, a very deliberate route of drop-off on the sides of the schoolhouse and looping around and picking up on that same side. And across the street, there's parking, and there's now, because of the improvements in the intersection, there are crosswalks with lights there, so that it's a signaled intersection with push-button lights. And there's also the opportunity we could engage with owners of Songbird Dental, for example, or the new owners if it's sold. Perhaps parking could be established there when we had special events so that people could very easily walk the few steps from there to the intersection. If there were other options, we would explore them.
Thank you. Yes.
I have a couple, I'm glad to hear that extermination was part of the budget, because that was on my list of how we're gonna deal with that. And a couple other things, with eliminating that door from the classroom to the vestibule, how is that gonna affect the heat situation? And I mean, I would assume that if you were in there at a cooler time, that you might have the stove going, or, and is that gonna have to heat the vestibule as well? I mean, it's just a,
So, you want to
There's-
talk about the stove?
I would think that would have been a block for protection from keeping the heat into the classroom as opposed to.
Just like at Sturbridge, for example, if you go to visit their schoolhouse, the only source of heat in that schoolhouse and the other buildings at Sturbridge Village is from a fireplace or from the stove. That's the only source of heat in that building. When you walk in the vestibule area, you're just in there really temporarily. It's just a transition spot where students would hang a coat. You just walk in there to entrance, into the classroom itself. And when we were open in the cooler months, we would have a lovely fire going in the fireplace, which we would like to continue. And it made it very comfortable in there. And we would honestly have the main door open and the vestibule door open as people would transition in and out. So we would have both doors open to keep the flow of traffic, of foot traffic with people coming in and out. So both doors would be open when the
Yeah,
building
I just
was
didn't know
open.
if eliminating that one door was really necessary, or to make that opening bigger and put a bigger door in. But I'm not the architect. Another thing is, how would you deal with restroom facilities? If people are in there for any length of time?
Yeah, unfortunately,
Do we
there's
have
no,
porta-johns or,
yeah, there's no space for permanent
right?
restrooms, so I think for large events, the society, well, you'd be able to speak better to, yeah, there's unfortunately no way to add restrooms within the building. That would obviously change the character of the building, and so the Park Service and Mass Historic would seek an outbuilding or something like that, or porta potties.
That's what was there originally behind the building.
Right.
There was an outbuilding behind the facility. That's what was there when it was a one-room schoolhouse. But there's no requirement for us to have that established.
So if a group of third graders were there for a morning,
It would be a 45-minute block. So the way that it's structured, it would be a 45, just like in school, a 45-minute block of instruction. It's not, it's formal, sit down. A teacher will teach a
Right.
lesson. You will participate in the lesson, and then the next class will come in and you'll rotate back onto the bus to go back to your classroom.
has that area where the outhouse was, has that area been excavated? I mean, there's generally an area that has artifacts, and I know we spoke of that.
It's on the
Now
neighbor.
part of the neighbor's property.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, and the last one was, on the plan, you've got that nice schematic of the layout of everything. Has that been taken to the building department yet, or to make sure that all setbacks are,
Not yet.
okay.
So this is just, like I said, it's a schema, it's a schematic design at this point.
That's it for now.
Yes.
Can you speak to, like, you're requesting 300,000 of CPA funds versus your grant money? Are you going to spend the grant money first? Is there an order that?
There are 2 grants being applied for.
Yep.
Both of them have the same timeline.
Okay.
So we will know from the Cultural Council grant, as well as should this grant move forward to town meeting, we will know the results of both of those almost simultaneously by June. And then we will also have fundraising involved. So we will know better towards June how those funds would be expended. we applied for the maximum amount from the Massachusetts Cultural Council.
Okay.
And then the society will make up the difference if there is a significant difference.
My question was more like, are you spending the grant money first and then CPA funds? So if there was money left over, it would come back to the town in CPC funding.
I would have to find out more from what the requirements are for the Cultural Council before I'd be able to answer that, but I can get back to you about that. That's a
That's
logical
understandable,
question.
but they may have their own
Right.
contingencies.
I can get back to,
Yep.
through Emma,
Okay.
I can get back to you
Yep,
regarding
thank you.
that.
Yep.
But the goal would be to return funds to each appropriate source.
It's okay. Thank you.
Are there any other questions for our presenters? Then at this point, is there anyone from any of our other audience members who wish to speak to this? Happy to hear from you if you are. Otherwise, is there in that case, we will entertain a motion to close the public hearing and we'll begin our deliberations. Is there a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
A second?
Second.
All in favor of closing the public hearing, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That closes the public hearing portion of this, and so now we'll start to figure out what we're going to do. What do we think, folks? Are there other questions or thoughts?
No, I'll go first. You know, the discussion about it being an expensive project, I don't view it as an expensive project. If you've done any building or any renovation work, you know the cost is crazy. And we've done a lot of projects in town here that we've looked at thinking, wow, that's a lot of money, but, you know, sticker shock, right? And for what they're doing, I really don't think that's an exorbitant amount of money. And if this building lasted 200 years already, or almost 200 years, 2028 it'll be celebrating its 200th anniversary. So 200 years, let's try and make it last another 200 years by doing what needs to be done to keep and maintain that building for another 200 years. These are resources that are fading from our landscape all over the country, and if we don't step in now to try and save them, they won't be there for generations to come. So I think these are the types of things that preservation money can go to that really enhance the character of our community. So I have no problems in granting the full amount and recommending it to go to town meeting. But I'm a little prejudiced, I guess.
That's all right. What else?
I have a question on the funding. Like, I know the applicant is planning to get a grant from the Mass Cultural Council. I mean, they've submitted an application that's pending. If that doesn't come through, then is the project dropped? Like,
Would you like to answer that? What happens if you don't get the Mass Cultural Council grant?
It's right now our number one priority at the Society to have this addressed. And you can see that strategically we worked on this from getting the National Historic Register status to phase 1, the ADA accessibility, to phase 2, feasibility, to phase 3. Phase 3 is the ending. We want to see this project to the finish. And we have to probably cross that bridge when we come to it. But it's our top priority as a society to make sure that we, number one, explore any and all grant opportunities. It does not mean that if one particular grant isn't effective, that we might not be able to find another grant association that would be willing to invest, that we match their standards. At this point, we feel that these are the best two matches that we have for the project moving forward. I wish I had a crystal ball, But all I can say is that our board has this as our top priority.
Just a follow-up. So, but that doesn't that affect your timeline of getting it open next year for
It might.
200?
I have to be very honest, it might. But then we could be open for the 200th anniversary in 2028. That's the 200th anniversary of that particular school building. The timing is ideal for us to focus on 2027. But we do have another opportunity for celebration the following year. Thank you for the question.
Other questions? Yeah, I know I personally love that you're looking to other funding sources as well, and not just to CPC for all of it, because you use the word maintenance, although some of the things you said that are maintenance could be defined as restoration or preservation, because community preservation funds cannot be used for maintenance, but they can be used for preservation and renovation. Perhaps Mass Cultural Council funds could be used for maintenance.
Over we have owned it now for more than 50 years, and those maintenance costs have been in our budget for over 50 years. And moving forward in our budget that's coming up for the next budget cycle for the society, we're even increasing our annual maintenance costs for the building, anticipating that it will be open. There'll be additional program costs, additional maintenance costs, but it has been part of our routine budget for more than 50 years, and it's not something we're going to delete. It's something we're going to continue with.
Excellent. Any?
No, I just have one last question. It is about the fumigating. How much does that work? How long will it last?
That I don't know exactly. The building itself would have to be tented, so basically put in an airtight bubble. We would have to look more at the different the processes and time frames for different exterminators, just their schedule, but also the act itself.
And we've currently explored getting prices and quotes from 3 different companies as far as completing that work as soon as possible. So those particular companies would be able to better explain what sort of longevity their treatment would entail.
And so I understand the floor. The floor is scary. I don't know, attic? Is that the right word?
Yes.
Okay. How bad is that?
Not really bad at all. We haven't seen them. We've seen the powder post beetles really just in the floor and the structure of the floor, but you do have that barrier of all the walls being brick, and so they have little incentive to crawl up the brick to get to the wood-framed attic when they are feasting on the wood-framed floor below.
They live for years, right? I mean, they're really long-lived and secretive, and people don't know that they even have them for a long time, right?
I don't know how long individually they live, but it seems like they, as a colony, can be pretty long-lasting. Yeah.
Okay. Well, good luck.
Again, if it's been treated and there's a recommended length of time that treatment is effective, and there's a recommended time for having it be retreated again, that becomes part of the maintenance cost that the society would bear.
Right. Good.
I would imagine as well that, the longer a building is closed up and not used, the more active the infestation can be, because, it's a free-for-all. Nobody's in there
No one's
sweeping
monitoring
and
it.
cleaning, so it's important that those kinds of buildings are used and utilized so that there's activity, and it doesn't give it a chance to, you see that as it's happening and you can take care of it. But when it's closed up all the time and nobody's in there for weeks or months, anything can happen. Just come to my barn and look at the flies that are all over the place. having a field day as well.
Your beautiful barn.
Are there any other thoughts or questions? What do we think, Diane?
I move we approve the application for the District 1 Schoolhouse ADA site work.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And we will recommend funding this to town meeting.
Thank you so much. We appreciate your support.
Thank you for taking good care of this irreplaceable building.
Thank you.
So do we have, Emma, do we have a recommended draft warrant article for this?
Yes, I do. I will go ahead and share my screen so you can all take a look at it.
Is in Thrive. So if you were to go down. Article 29. I am trying to learn how to use progressive lenses and failing miserably.
Isn't this Article 26?
The article specifically for the schoolhouse is 29, but you're
Oh.
correct that the first article on this document is 26.
Oh, there it is. I get it. I get it.
May I just ask a quick question? I noticed that I had printed out an earlier copy of the agenda before it was adjusted, and I see that there's a community advocate bill. Are we just putting that off till okay.
Correct. Yeah, that will be on our next agenda.
All right, thank you.
So does anyone see anything in this article that we should change or edit? Yes.
I think just a comment. I think these, I have to rely on our staff that these are put in the appropriate format for town meeting. So I want to make sure we don't try to go down an editing avenue here with commas and all that other stuff. I think.
More of words, commas.
Yep. I'm going to say they
space,
probably
errant
didn't.
spaces.
No emojis.
Yep, just,
They are all
guess-
consistent and is everything that this is. We have completed exterior and interior accessibility improvements, structural remediation, and historic preservation measures. That covers it.
I
Yes.
guess my question is, this is, the way it's written here, this is for the selectmen to sign off. This is not the final warrant that we will get the review.
Correct. Yeah. So this this is what you recommend to the select board. Correct.
Yep, and they're gonna sign that tomorrow.
Yes.
And we will get what's going to the town meeting, April?
Yeah.
And
And
May's kinda late because it's gone to the printer by then.
correct. Yeah. So it will be before that, before the town meeting packets go out to town meeting members.
So we'd have to review it in the April meeting.
we can't change it once it goes to the select board.
Substitute.
No, I'm
Okay,
just saying,
okay.
no. This here is very general. There's no dollar figure in here. The one that goes to the town meeting has to have a dollar
She has a
figure in it,
comment.
et cetera,
We
et cetera.
had the dollar figures last meeting, I thought.
So we have to put,
Yeah, let her answer.
Yeah,
No.
so that's a good question. So this is this will be the warrant article going forward as well. However, I believe what you're referring to, John, is the motion, the specific motion that goes to town meeting members. That will include specific dollar amounts.
and we will get to review that.
Yes.
is my point.
Yeah,
So
yes,
we have
correct.
to
But this
approve-
will stay the same.
Do we officially have to approve that?
Right now, we're just approving the warrant article.
But the motion we need to approve also.
I'm not entirely sure. I can get back to you on that, though.
I think this is your recommendation to the select board,
Correct.
and then from there.
See, I would think we should review it just to make sure all the dollar figures are correct and all the information going to the town meeting is correct. That's all.
Yeah, absolutely. So I can go back and look at what was the precedent set by last year and how we went about that. I don't remember off the top of my head, but I can get back to you on that process.
So our next meeting is in 2 weeks.
Yeah,
So-
the April meeting, yeah.
So for the purposes of just approving this warrant article, everything appears to be there. As Kathy so aptly said, it follows all the others, and our experts wrote it. Is there yes.
I have one question. So the CPA Coalition website mentions that for historic rehabilitation projects, the work should comply with the Secretary of the Interior standards for rehabilitation. And their funding application does mention that it'll comply with it. But the coalition recommends that we require that language in any grant that we award, that work comply with
I believe
those standards.
we did last year. Was that in
Yeah.
but that wasn't the one with the figures, was it not? Or
So what I will say is that, as is standard with all CPA projects, there will be an official draft agreement that is signed by the CPC chair, and that goes to the project manager. So in this case, it would be Chris who gets that if this were approved by town meeting. And that can be specified in that grant agreement. But I also would like to note that Griffin and I have had conversations with Chris specifically about that, because that was also something I brought to her attention. And she was very diligent in noting that she knows that the work has to be compliant with that, and she also knows that any contractors doing work are made to be aware of that, as is standard with all projects on historical buildings.
do we have sufficient information and assurances to vote on Article 29 as written? Is there a motion to approve Article 29 as written?
Motion to approve Article 29 is written.
Is there a
Second.
second? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? It passes. So we actually you have 3 of our draft warrant articles to approve. We just did, frankly, the second one for the schoolhouse. The annual appropriations, what was changed about that one?
Yes, so I can go over what was changed. So you'll first notice that the state matching funds has been changed, and that is because on I believe it was March 4th, so right after our March meeting, the State Department of Revenue released their projection for matching, which was 15.5%. So that figure has been updated to reflect that. And also, just a point of clarification as well, because I know this was brought up in our March meeting, but the state match, that is 15.5% of the projected revenue for fiscal year 2027, not fiscal year 2026. The revenue, I believe this may have been mentioned in our March meeting, but that figure is an estimation from the assessor's office. So that's where that figure comes from. It's consistent. It was the same as it was last meeting. Total revenues is a combination of the state matching funds and also the local surcharge estimated revenue. Now, because the state matching funds was changed, that also means that the percentages for allocations, the 5% for admin, 10% for open space, historic, and community housing. Those also have been changed to reflect the update in the state matching funds. And then lastly, I just want to highlight the return of unspent funds number. You'll see that I have a comment here on the side, so you can see the broken down figures of where that number is coming from. So we have $6 that's returning from the District Number 5 Schoolhouse Facility Review, 24 cents returning from the Lake Street Park Story Walk, and then we have $5,054.13 returning from the architectural study at the First Congregational Church, and then lastly, there is $28,500 returning from the Prospect Park Pergola project.
Yes.
Refresh my memory, I'm sorry, but so the basketball court money and like this is coming back because I mean I understand the 24 cents, right? We don't need a town warrant article to get that 24 cents, but is there a reason this money's coming back and that money isn't?
Yes, there is. So these are all coming from projects that have submitted project closeout forms, and those have been approved by this committee. For the Dean Park basketball court, for Camp One again, those are the two I'm listing off the top of my head because I know they had larger sums of money that could potentially be coming back to CPC or will be coming back to CPC. However, they're currently not listed on the warrant article for this fiscal year because they don't have signage, and that was something that the committee has requested in the past. So that is something that the project manager is working to accomplish before the committee officially votes to approve that project closeout. Once that project closeout is approved and the committee is satisfied, then hopefully in the next fiscal year that those returns of funds will be on next fiscal year's warrant article.
A year from now or in the fall?
It depends on when the committee approves the project closeout for those projects.
So the project manager for those two, I believe, is not long for employment at the town of Shrewsbury, right? So if this falls through the crack, is that something we should be taking on, the signage for these two?
Yeah, so what I can say is that I have had discussions with the project manager, which is Kevin Esposito. As you know, he is retiring shortly. He is very dedicated to finishing these out and getting signs up so that these projects can be closed out soon thereafter. If for some reason there are circumstances outside of his control that make it so that he is not able to finish them before he retires, then that's something that we can discuss with the town manager's office and whoever will be filling his position, because obviously that is, an unprecedented circumstance. So we'll figure out a way to move forward, and that is something that the next staff person who takes his place would be in charge of.
I have one other little question. If something, if in general a project is finished and before the project is closed out, some little defect or problem arises, do they go back to the money that they would have returned and use that, or is there some other mechanism for, fixing that?
It would very much so depend on what the funds are being spent on, because if it's something outside of the original project scope, then they would not be allowed to use the funds for those purposes. But if it is something within the project scope or something that the committee has specifically requested, then yes, those funds could be used.
Well, I can imagine if the problem was due to some failure on the part of the contractor, that they should be responsible.
As an example, there was some significant cracks that appeared in the Dean Park basketball court.
As a matter of fact, that was what I was thinking of, yes.
Yes, yes, but Kevin has addressed that with the contractor, and they are going to fix it.
Okay, thank you very much.
No additional funds.
All right.
As a note, in the past, I put forth a thought that the signage at any project we do, I thought well, in my opinion, should fall back on us and the administrative costs, a piece of that, to go to that signage versus the project manager. Because I was hoping for some consistency between our signage, and I'm not sure how we make sure that happens, because I don't know what signs are going where and what they look like, right?
Can I just speak to that briefly?
Sure.
The Trails Committee has arranged with Mr. Esposito to have a sign for Camp Wanigan. I imagine you've heard about this.
Yeah.
And in passing, it was discussed that years ago, when Angela Snell was in charge of the two departments, recreation and maintenance, I guess, she had an idea about the same sort of thing, that all the parks should have the same sign. And then she went on to another job, and that project sort of disappeared. I think that's something that was an excellent idea, and that we'd have consistency around town. And as the old signs that we have now go away, I think they should follow the the style that we're developing. So, just my opinion there.
I'll note that if that is something that the committee wishes, I would recommend that that's a change that you make to the application coming up in the next few months when you're updating the community preservation plan, only because I think that needs to be made clear to project applicants that there is an expectation, and there would be a formulaic sign that they would need to use at their project site.
Right.
So I think that's something the committee can entertain going forward, but unfortunately I don't think looking back on past project is something that could be enforced.
Mm-hmm.
If something like a sign is what's holding up a project that's been done for quite a while, then maybe that is an appropriate agenda item for our next meeting, to think about what is our policy on signage, and that perhaps we approve a design and that we make that expectation clear that this sign, the criteria, obviously if it's a study, studies don't need signs, but if it's a physical project, that we expect that this sign, of an appropriate size, be somewhere in a visible place, and we can give them examples of things that we think are appropriate in scale, because we would like people to see it, but at the same time, not a billboard. And if the way to ensure that is that's part of our administrative cost, and we do have funds for administrative costs, and if we were to produce a bunch of them or have a small stack of appropriate signs on hand, maybe we'd get good pricing on that. So.
One other note too, we do have, this was before my time with CPC, but I know we do have some temporary signage that was approved by this committee.
They were supposed to be put at work sites when things were happening, and the weird thing, I never ever saw one.
Yeah, so we have those. We don't have permanent signs, but obviously, like you just said, like there have been numerous CPC projects that have been studies or facility reviews, so obviously those can't have signs.
Make that an agenda item for our next meeting, and could you bring us one of the temporary signs? Because has anyone ever seen one? Oh,
Yeah.
it would be swell to see one. All right.
Just before Emma and you, I imagine, Deborah came, we did do kind of a signage study. If some of you that were here remember, we had samples, we all brought in pictures and stuff. So someplace in the file, Rowan may have had that back in her
There
file.
are some examples, and I know I had a photo, which I can send you if you find the others, I remember there was one I saw on Aquina that I thought was absolutely perfect, because it wasn't obtrusive, but it was the first thing my husband saw when we walked up to the lighthouse, and that man doesn't notice anything. And he saw it. He's like, look, CPA.
Good for him.
One other resource that I can send to all of you, which was also shared with Kevin Esposito, and I know where he took inspiration for the signs that will be put up at CPA project sites. The coalition does have a great, it's a few pages long, and it just has photos of different signs that other CPA communities have used. So if you're interested in that, I can also share that with the committee.
That sounds like a wonderful project for April. That. So, if we need to approve these last two. We got off at a bit of a tangent, warrant articles. So everything appears to be in order for the warrant article for annual appropriations. Is there a motion to approve that as written?
Motion to approve the annual appropriations motion as written.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? And then the warrant article regarding the Maple Ave field lighting, there was something that was changed in that from when we spoke of it last time. There was a notation or an edit. Emma, can you share with us about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So there was a slight change to, let me scroll down to it for you.
Article 28.
The Maple Ave Recreation Field Lighting article. So this was a slight change that we were advised to make from Town Council. So I'll just share what the original wording was and what it is now, so you know the difference. This is the third line of the article, towards the end of the line where it says both located at, so right after lacrosse field. Originally that read located at the center of Maple Ave Recreation Area, and it now says both located at Maple Ave Recreation Area.
Yes.
And that's the only edit that has been made.
Any thoughts or questions
Okay.
about that change?
That's really minor.
Yeah.
Nothing to debate.
I guess the one question I have is, has anybody been in touch with Selco to have any discussions about their potential help with this? 'Cause I brought it up initially.
Yeah, so I can't speak obviously for the project applicant, but from my knowledge, those conversations haven't happened yet, but I know they're in the works. But I also will note, I don't think they're definitely something that obviously we can keep the committee up to date about, but not entirely relevant for the warrant article, I will say.
Maybe after it's approved.
Hmm?
Maybe after it's, if town meeting approves it, maybe then they'll go.
Well, see, I really believe, I know I'm a town meeting member, and somebody joked that I'd be asking the question, which I won't. Somebody's gonna stand up and ask that question, what's Selco doing to help out? Because I know they did a lot of the work on the Little League fields. So if that question comes up, who's gonna be ready to answer it?
Yeah, so I think that's a great question, John, and definitely something that can come up potentially at town meeting. And I will say that the project applicant, especially based on hearing that question during our public hearing at our last meeting, she knows that question might be coming, and she will be prepared to answer that if it does come up.
That would be assuming she has a conversation with Selco. I mean, she's had a month already, and I guess I'm just concerned that if they put it off this much, nothing's gonna happen.
I think another big piece of that is that this project hasn't been officially approved yet. So obviously, I know she's very, very busy. So because this hasn't been officially approved, those are conversations that I know are wanted to be had and will be had down the line. But as of right now, this project has not been approved.
Well, see, again, I think the conversations should be before it's approved. Because if Selco can do all the installation work, then we're not gonna need $650,000.
Correct, and anything, if that were the case, and that did happen, anything that would not have been spent on the project would be returned.
Yeah, but I don't wanna wait 2 years to get the money back. I'd like to get it reduced from 650 to 450, so I got 200 to spend somewhere else.
And I completely understand that. I think it's tough to talk in the hypotheticals
Would it
the
be
funding
appropriate-
application
It's
has
not a
already been approved.
hypothetical, it's not a hypothetical.
So
Somebody
would it be
needs-
appropriate for the
You want
Community
me to-
Preservation Committee
Yeah.
to ask Laurel if she would reach out, if she would start a conversation and or be prepared to speak to that question should it be asked at town meeting?
Absolutely.
We officially ask her to explore it, but that,
Until,
if we could, yeah.
and to let us know what the answer is at our next
Yes.
meeting.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Which is in
But
2 weeks.
that doesn't change the wording of this warrant article. So is there a motion to approve the Maple Ave Recreation Field Lighting warrant article as written?
Warrant to approve the Maple Ave Recreation Field Lighting warrant article as written.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So that is our last action item on tonight's agenda. We will officially ask Laurel to speak to Selco about the possibility of them partnering on that project and get back to us with an answer and be prepared to help with answer that should it arise at town meeting. We will put a discussion about signage on our April agenda. Is there anything else? Except a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? That concludes our special meeting. Thank you all for coming
Thank
out
you.
for a second night this month.